Welcome everybody to the Genesis Mindset. And in this episode, I'll be covering a portion of the Atropa Ecosystem chat log. So the 414 IRC chat log with Maria Rahel. There was recently a conversation between a gentleman called Kevin and Maria in relation to BFF. And this is really important because BFF is part of the layer 2 of the Atropa ecosystem. But before I get into that, I want to first mention I did an amazing stream with Lit. My Life is Awesome. It was awesome. It was a great stream. I loved it. I loved his vibe. I've always loved his vibe. He's an awesome dude, and it was really good to connect with him one-on-one. It was a long stream. It was an epic stream. I think it ended up going for just over 4 hours. I left at the 3 hours and 30-minute mark. But some of the things that we were discussing there and the things that we resonate a lot on is trying to bring the communities together to figure out ways to pump Pulsechain. And I kept emphasizing that I believe that this is already happening right in front of our eyes, but we're just not able to see it yet. And I think this is happening with the ideas that are emerging within all the different communities. So for myself, what I'm interested in is finding similarities within communities rather than divisions. That's what I'm all about. I'm Coexistent Steven. So I really try to live up to that name. So I want to just start by just going over this tweet. And again, I would like to emphasize the similarities. So at the minute, there seems to be like a battle between the Tang Gang and Atropa. I don't really, unless I'm blind, I haven't really seen the Atropa ecosystem really do anything but defend themselves. But one thing that Ted DeFi here mentioned was the cool thing about HOA is it's a meme coin, but the founder is fully doxxed. So obviously, I think this is in reference to 414. You don't need to go into an outdated messaging service to contact him. Again, referencing the IRC with 414. There's no secret whale chat, the gated chat. You can join if you have only the one HOA. The whales are more concerned with liquidity providing than selling on newcomers' heads. And I really liked this one. And I think this is very much where the Tang Gang and the Atropa ecosystem align much more heavily than I think what the Tang Gang actually realize. You could join the Tang Gang without even having to buy in, just enjoy memes. I would almost dispute this. I've been cast out of the Telegram chat twice for really very questionable reasons. Tang Gang is responsible for making NFTs on Pulsechain more complex by advocating for the dark block to join the layer 1, an actual community that has 3 weekly spaces. So again, this is another similarity that I see the Tang Gang with the Atropa ecosystem, and I'm interested in those similarities. The NFTs, yeah, not too sure about that with other ecosystems. I know that they're very critical of other meme cultures, and I think that that's really good because it's helping other communities actually advance their meme cultures. But our boy Zach, big 414 advocate, responded here with this video. And I was just commenting that the retro is cool. I mean, I think it's cool. It's like this big secret mystery narrative. I actually find that fascinating, and I think other people do. The Atropa whales are concerned with helping all of Pulsechain. So the Atropa ecosystem is concerned with helping all of Pulsechain. So by extension, the Atropa whales are also concerned with helping all of Pulsechain. So I've actually been banned and abused by both communities when I first started covering Atropa. Like I got reported a few times. So shout out to Abdul Kali. He reported me a few times, but that's stopped now, thankfully. So NFTs are cool with the utility. Many communities within the Atropa community, which is really cool. So there's the main Atropa community, then subsets of communities. Both are very innovative, in my opinion, and there's more similarities than differences. And in both, I recognize in both a high consciousness. So it's coming from the top down, the consciousness of the leadership. I mean, again, I saw a fantastic post by Too Spooky today. He's a really fantastic leader in that community. He's brilliant. So I actually want him to get onto Lit's My Life is Awesome stream, and hopefully they can kind of have a discussion, because I think that they're two really great minds that can come together. And again, I think the power is going to be where we actually align with each other rather than where we differentiate with each other. And just like Too Spooky was saying, when all the pistons are firing in the same manner and they're synced up, things run better. So now if you apply that same principle across all the different communities, then the whole of Pulsechain fires better rather than division and clashes and separation. I'm not interested in that. If people are, then you guys go ahead with it, but I'm always just going to keep bringing the similarities and the positivity. That's what I'm going to be doing. So with that said, I'm going to now get on with the presentation. And like I said, this is just a portion of the 414 chat. So this is between Kevin and Bay. So conversations with Bay, 414 chat log on BFF, so layer 2. So I think it's going to be very interesting. So in summary, conversations with Bay basically went between, like I said, Kevin and Bay about BFF and layer 2 and the direction of the Atropa ecosystem. And again, it's emphasized in this. This is something that I feel is missing. This is something where on Lit's show, I didn't want to shill Atropa because I didn't want to be disrespectful to his to his platform. He got me on to talk about Pulsechain, and there's always a little bit of sensitivity about redirecting people to other tokens. So I didn't want to do that. But if anyone from that from Lit's channel is by chance watching this, I would love you to understand that the Atropa ecosystem is a financial ecosystem. At some point, Lit came up with this idea of basically like collaborating to pump up tokens, take profits out, pump up another token, take profits out. And then we all had a laugh. It's like organized pump and dumps. And yes, in principle, I actually think this is a brilliant idea. The problem is because this is a linear system, there's winners and then there's losers. That's the problem. There's always going to be losers. So it's not just about pumpermentals for an individual token. That's something that the Atropa ecosystem differentiates itself from every other ecosystem that I have ever seen. So even with the Tangang HOA is starting to branch out with all these different tokens which feed into HOA. But with the Atropa ecosystem, it's a much more intricate network of probably over 100 tokens now. So I think it would be good for people to actually humble themselves and reserve their opinions and learn about it first, because whoever is behind this Atropa ecosystem, whether it's an individual or a team, whatever it is, it's a genius. So instead of being critical, we should actually humble ourselves and try and learn from the world. I think as a mindset perspective, my meditation teacher always had the perspective that everybody was his teacher. His parents, adults, his friends were always his teacher. And that is a very humble mind. That is a very open mind. And I've also tried to adapt that perspective. And you actually learn a lot better than having a narrow mind and saying, only I'm right. So I'll definitely really continue to encourage people to learn from each individual ecosystem. So OG Web Chef was also cooking up in the background and sharing his BFF programmable buy bot. So he was actually showing how that's been working and showing the transactions to create this buy pressure with BFF. So that's really cool as well. So now let's get into it. So convos with Bay. Kevin said, if we hit our target price for BFF, which is 8,000, how much is expected to be burned in LP from the top wallets? So again, I just want to clarify what burning liquidity is. So burning liquidity is pretty much just you creating a liquidity pool, and you can either send, so when you create a liquidity pool on Pulsex, for example, you pair two tokens together, and then once you create that pool, you'll get PLP. So that's basically your token, which says you've created this liquidity pool on Pulsex. You can send that PLP to a burn address. So Annabelle is a burn address within the Atropa ecosystem, and that signifies the fact that you're removing that as sell pressure, and you're not going to sell those tokens. And those tokens can only ever be bought because it's burned liquidity. You don't have to go to those links either. You can also just do what I'm doing, where I'm basically just taking a portion of those tokens in my portfolio and locking it up in liquidity and making a promise to myself that I'm never going to sell those tokens. I might sell like a little bit of profit off the top at some point, depending on how it goes, but I'll never dump those tokens on the market or pull that liquidity. So this is a benevolent force for the ecosystem. So Bay is saying, looking at a minimum of 107 BFF. Kevin says, burn from the 414 address or the top wallets. I can't estimate about other wallets. So if OG Web Chef 888 turns on the bots, the 107 number might go up. So basically, Maria is looking at burning at least 107 of the 777 supply. And I believe she has over 100 tokens, so the majority will be from her. And if other people want to participate, that's up to them. So to determine if a top wallet is malicious or not, how much is expected of them to burn? What's an acceptable amount? Bay says, I imagine that the number will be determined after my own wallet has burned and or placed liquidity LP on about 40 BFF. So she's hoping to get about 107, but she's going to start with 40 and then see how other whales, how big holders actually interact. So to run a scenario quickly, say 2 BFF in LP with Teddy initially at 8K. So remember, we're waiting for that 8K target to really start to go deep with the LPs. If the top 3 wallets decide to join and they place 1 in LP with Teddy and burn it, would that be achieving the outcomes that Atropa is hoping to achieve? That scenario might get things moving quicker than planned. I assume the purpose of Atropa Ecosystem is to ensure that victims are minimized when working under your terms. If we stabilize the price at a point that's higher than whatever everyone got in at, there are no losers. So, okay, first of all, correct. The primary goal is identification and minimization of worst case scenarios. If we can literally remove the bottom after reaching 8K, then that is a target goal. So I want to emphasize this point because there's a lot of criticism directed at the Atropa ecosystem by people that don't understand. And just like I've seen today, where I've seen people who used to be critical of Richard Hart and the Pulsechain ecosystem, there's a lot of people that are coming out, they didn't do their research and they were actually critical and they were clout chasing and they were critical of Richard Hart, and they've actually done the research now, and their perspective has changed once they've actually learned what it's all about. In the same manner, I really encourage people to really start to learn about what the Atropa ecosystem is, because if you think that this is a malevolent force, there's really nothing to indicate that it is. If there's been one token where you might have lost money or seen someone that lost money, there's over 100, there's like 80 to 100 tokens in the ecosystem. Each of the tokens all work for the higher cause. So just like in a government, when a government gets voted in, there's always going to be winners and there's always going to be losers, but it's always for the greater good. There's always an egalitarian purpose. And so it's the same thing with the Atropa ecosystem. So I really want to emphasize this point, that one of the main points is that if we can literally remove the bottom after reaching the 8K, so the 8K that becomes the bottom, the 8K. Not only that, the primary goal. So again, I'm going to emphasize this. I want to show this because I really want people to wrap their heads around this. So I think, and I mean, yeah, I guess this is probably directed more so at, people that are very critical, that think that this is all just like a rug pull. The primary goal is identification and minimization of worst case scenarios. So when you have an ecosystem of many, many, many tokens, there are going to be things that happen wrong, incorrectly. There will be things that are like mistakes in a way. There are things that are experiments. This is an evolving work in process, but the primary goal is identification and minimization of worst case scenarios. So she says correct that whatever happens, there are no losers. That's the objective. So isn't that also what the Tangang is trying to do, to create liquidity pools with this individual token and buffet it up? This is what Atropa is doing with the entire ecosystem. Now, if it can do this with an ecosystem of tokens, can it also do it with the ecosystem of Pulsechain, and then by extension do it to Pulsechain itself? Really have a think about that, and really, like, we should be cheering this on. We all should be like, hell yeah, I hope she succeeds. I hope she succeeds and wins, and then everybody wins. This is something that I really hope people start to understand and open their mind and their heart to this, the beauty that's happening on this Atropa ecosystem that I think people are definitely missing. So hypothetically, if someone out there had a lot of teddy bear, for example, but also had a lot of BFF and they burned most of it, what could help the process? So there are arguable mechanisms of burning or LP that would not be assistive as well. So in other words, there's going to be circumstances with burning LP that are going to be beneficial and circumstances that are not going to be beneficial. So hopefully, as we continue to develop and stay connected as an ecosystem, we're going to learn about what the right actions are going to be to take. And so Kevin says, if this is achieved, you have created something absolutely amazing in crypto. And I hope that everyone who reads this understands the magnitude. And I couldn't agree with you more, Kev. And Bay basically humbly accepted by stating that we'll see when we actually get there. So very humble. Kevin, do you have faith given the leaderboard? If multiple people with 20 plus tokens need to liquidate before we have room to sell without going under 8K, it could cause delays, but overall the numbers are pretty much inevitable. So the target of 8,000, in Maria's opinion, is inevitable. But again, if people with a lot of tokens, so the whales, start selling or liquidating, then it's going to cause delays to actually get to that 8K target. So if the top wallets work together to ensure that doesn't happen, Bay says, so far, that is the case. The target is strong and our progress is above expectations. I like seeing the holders' numbers go up. So again, just like we saw in TED DeFi, so TED DeFi was basically saying that the whales are working together in the Tang Gang, and in that same way, the whales are also working together within this Atropa ecosystem. So again, the similarities are far more beautiful than the differentiations to me. Kevin, have you considered a laddered approach? And Bay said, I think this was in response to the previous comments, a massive number of smaller investors is the best way to make it happen. And she asks, laddered how? And he said, I guess you did actually. And she said, I'm only considering how to best accomplish the effort with my own holdings. So overall, the ecosystem is supposed to be driven by how I use my holdings to prove potential without any regard to what others do and without any automated trading on my part. So in other words, through Maria's benevolent actions, if her benevolent actions and her with her holdings actually prove to be beneficial to the ecosystem, then naturally people and hopefully the whales within the ecosystem will look at this behavior and say, okay, I'm also interested in propping up and building this ecosystem. I'm also going to act in the same way as Maria. But basically Maria is saying it shouldn't require anybody else. It should only be something that she can do and prove with her own math, basically her own holdings. I think that's how I've understood. Overall, the ecosystem is supposed to be driven by how I use my holdings to prove potential without any regard to what others do. So regardless of what others do, she should be able to prove what this Atropa ecosystem is actually all about with her own holdings. Okay, at a certain level, announcing to a BFF whale that they must provide LP and burn it. And she says, I think it's reasonable that the community could be engaged to do that. So I think Kevin, I don't know if that was a question or not, but Kevin was basically asking whether or not she would engage the whales if we get to these levels. And if someone is already, or even to force someone out, has what exactly? So there's a bit of, so basically, I think it is reasonable that the community could be engaged to do that, or even engaged to force someone out who's acting against the interests of the ecosystem. And if someone has already started to do this, and she's asking, has done what exactly? Because here she's made 2 points about whether someone's acting for or against. What would be an acceptable amount to burn to try and ensure stability? At the moment, I'm not recommending it. And he's asking, why is that? She said, when we get to the 8K, burning one BFF at a time to any non-mintable token with a strong and friendly outlook is going to result in the best outcome. So in other words, don't pair the BFF with a mintable token, for example, MV. Right now, we want to squeeze the liquidity pool small to get to 8K fast. And so any large sell will face a big loss. Okay, so again, as I've explained in previous videos with Hex in particular, the design of Hex is thin liquidity. With thin liquidity, that in the liquidity pools, that means small buys, small amount of buy pressure makes the price go up fast, and small amount of sell pressure makes it go down fast. That's why we went down 99.9% or whatever it was. And so that same principle is being applied here. So in order to get to that 8,000, we want to have less liquidity pools created, because as you create liquidity pools, that means there's more tokens in the market that actually need to be bought in order for the price to move up. When there's less tokens in the market, it can go up faster to that 8K. And conversely, when we get to that 8K, people start to dump at 8K without actually creating those liquidity pools at the 8K, then it can also dump fast. And then the people who do that will face a big loss. Okay. So someone may have messed that up by burning LP. I would consider it premature. So I think someone or people have maybe burned LP already. I looked at the contract address. I didn't really see any big amounts of LP. I saw the main one with, I think, 33 BFF in it. And then I saw like lots of little ones, but nothing substantial. But I think Maria is just saying if we did start burning LP now, it would be premature. But perhaps even all these little liquidity pools that have been created already, maybe that's what she's referring to as premature, because I guess accumulatively, it probably all adds up to like 1 BFF, for example. And what if it was done to ensure they had enough assets on their side of the LP? On the first page, we have a total of about 37 BFF available in LP. So she actually linked the contract address. And if you went to the holders with the contract address, you would actually see that there was 37 BFF available in liquidity. I think there was 2 liquidity pools. There was the one that she's doing with the no nukes, and there was, I think, 33 in there. And there must have been probably one with Pulsechain, which obviously might have had like 4 in there. Because if we get to 8K initially, it will take a very long time to sell into which liquid asset and then provide additional LP and burn it. What have I missed there? Okay. Because if we get to 8K initially, it will take a very long time to sell into which liquid asset and then provide additional LP and burn it. Maria says, if they're burning against their own token with a strong outlook and wholly friendly intentions, and particularly if they have a small holding and want the burn to increase the value of their own token by burning BFF on liquidity, then that's great. So this is where the interplay of the liquidity providing gets very interesting. So if they are burning against their own token with a strong outlook, so in other words, if I create BFF and Teddy Bear, and I'm burning against my tokens of BFF and Teddy Bear with the friendly intention, so in other words, not to rug pull, to actually participate within the ecosystem, and particularly if they have a small holding and want the burn to increase the value of their own token. So in other words, if I burn BFF, by virtue of burning it, I'm actually increasing the value of it. This is a key part that people really need to understand about liquidity providing, because if I burn my BFF, I'm removing my sell pressure from that ecosystem, which means it actually just becomes a buy, which actually means it's a net positive on the value of the token. And we're seeing that occur in HOA. So this is what HOA does. And this is what Atropa Ecosystem is also doing. The difference is Atropa Ecosystem is attempting to do this across a network of tokens. And this is the difference. So it's much more complicated in that way. But it's still doing exactly the same, and it still has a benevolent intention. And obviously, again, if people start to click onto this idea that I can actually increase the value of my tokens by burning BFF on liquidity, then that's great. So if people can start to realize that, then it's a big win for the ecosystem in general. Because then people are really going to start to click onto the idea and switch onto the idea about what this is actually all about. So figure if you have, so for example, if you have a non-mintable token and you burn your BFF holding to LP against it, but retain enough of your own token to buy back the BFF that you burned, then that's exactly how the Atropa ecosystem was launched itself. Okay. That's something that is definitely, as I was reading it, it didn't really click. And as I was writing it, it didn't really click, but now it's clicked. So as a matter of fact, let's go over it again. So if you have a non-mintable token, so let's say Teddy Bear, and you burn your BFF holdings to an LP against it, so in other words, I create a BFF and Teddy Bear liquidity pool, but retain enough of your own token, so retain enough of my Teddy Bear, to buy back the BFF that you burned, then that's exactly how the Atropa ecosystem was launched itself. But to expand on this as well, if I actually create a token and pair it with BFF, So this was something that was covered in the previous chat log. So this is really just clicked now. So this was covered, I think, previously in one of my last videos about the chat log from a few months ago, and it's still never really fully clicked. So again, I want to emphasize, I'm not here as a teacher. Hey, look at me, I'm showing you all these things that I know. I'm here as a sharer. I'm here as sharing with you the things that I'm seeing, the things that I'm understanding, so we can learn together. So if I actually create a token, let's say I create a token with, I don't know, 10,000 supply, and for whatever reason, the token value. So you look at Rob, for example, the token that Shane Hart-Schuler, Richard's brother, has created. So you look at Rob, the value of Rob has gone up a lot. So now, but Rob only has one supply. That's what makes it, that's what makes it unique. It only has one. But if now Shane Hart-Schuler took a small percentage of that one and paired it up with BFF, but he wanted to pump BFF, and he's only put in like 0.1% of his total supply of the one Rob token, then with Rob, he can actually pump BFF by continuing to buy back that BFF within that liquidity pool. So just creating tokens and then buying it back to boost the value. And this is what Atropa Ecosystem is doing across the board. This is what it's doing across the network of tokens. It's creating these tokens with certain suppliers that will have an artificial value that will start to get pumped up with just small amounts of liquidity. And then it has this value then that can be paired with other tokens, and then all this pretend value that was easily pumped up because of the low supply, it's pumped up a lot because of the low supply, can actually then artificially pump up this token. So there's all this fake value in this created token that can pump up this token, and that feeds its way up into Atropa or down, whichever way you want to look at it. So this is the genius of the Atropa ecosystem. So again, going back to what Lit was talking about yesterday, my life is awesome. Like he was talking about, okay, pumping this, taking it out, going to the next thing, pumping it, taking it out, going to the next thing. So this is a linear thing where there's winners and losers. It's not a network of tokens. This is a network of tokens that are all feeding up to this Atropa. And this is what differentiates it. And they all have different, there's mintable tokens in there. There's tokens with different kinds of suppliers which interact with other tokens with different kinds of suppliers. So there's a specific design around them. So again, when we talk about how can we actually give fuel to the Pulsechain ecosystem, that fuel is being created here. This financial system is being created here already in Atropa, but people still haven't clicked onto the idea. And it's not a 100% certainty. No one knows if this is going to work. We're really just experimenting. Me personally, I'm looking at this, and with just the fact that the universe has led me here, and I always maintain that faith that wherever I get directed, things work out. I'm looking at this as an inevitability, but just like anything, I can't 100% know, but I look at it like an inevitability. So I think that this is certainly going to work. I really have a lot of trust in the ecosystem and trust in the direction that the universe has actually put me in with this ecosystem. So I really trust it in the same way that I trust Richard Hart and Pulsechain, that eventually it's going to work out. I also believe the same thing with the Atropa ecosystem, also because I'm seeing the results. And especially after this phase of the Atropa ecosystem pump, if we break the all-time highs of Atropa and we've created these lower lows across the board with all this network of tokens, then we're doing exactly what HOA has done, but across a network of tokens, across a network. So again, this collective consciousness of Pulsechain is far more elite than anywhere else that I've ever seen on any other thing. There's people that are actually designing things and thinking about how can we actually make this whole ecosystem, this whole of Pulsechain grow. So the answers are already here within us. They're already within. Just like with meditation, the answers are already within. Okay, so Kevin says, because many do not have a lot of money outside BFF. Most of the whales hit it big, except Crazy Robot Guy. So they won't be able to burn liquidity with anything outside of what they profit from selling at 8K. So in other words, many people don't have a lot of money outside of BFF. So now the people who got in early with BFF, now they have a lot of money because they bought in. People have got like hundreds of X's because they bought in really low on BFF. They might have bought, like whatever, a dozen or 20 or whatever. And now it's worth like 2,000-3,000 a token. And we're aiming for that 8,000 token. So those people are actually like whales now in BFF. So most of the whales hit it big. So they won't be able to burn liquidity with anything outside of what they profit from selling at 8K. So in other words, once they sell the BFF and make a profit on it, maybe then they'll be able to buy other tokens to pair up and burn the liquidity with their remaining BFF. And then Base says, look into legal. So this is something that I'm going to do for a future episode because I want to continue to understand this idea. Look into legal token and the burned LPs that extend out from it. We're doing the same as that contract with BFF. If we fully meet the goal, except that the bottom line guarantee of liquidity will be versus the stable dollar. The assets that guarantee the bottom line of 2 are not stable. So I think what she's referring to here is legal is part of layer 1 or layer 0. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure. So legal is one of the first closely bonded tokens to Atropa. And then tokens that extended out from that were used to burn LPs to basically prop up legal. So we're doing that now with BFF. And so if we meet the goal, if we are doing the same as that contract with BFF, if we fully meet the goal, except that the bottom line guarantee of liquidity will be versus stable dollars. There's a lot for my brain to kind of. The assets will guarantee the bottom line of 2 are not. The assets that guarantee the bottom line of 2 are not stable. Okay. So we're doing the same. Okay, so look into legal token and the burn LPs that extend out from it. We're doing the same as that contract. So the same as what legal did, but with BFF. And so if we fully meet the goal, except that the bottom line guarantee of liquidity will be versus stable money, stable value, stable tokens. The assets that guarantee the bottom line of 2 are not stable. So the assets that guarantee the bottom line of 2, so layer 2, are not yet stable. So right, so over time, it simply moves with the market, kind of like the S&P 500, while stabilizing the P stables. This was something that was like, again, it's the mention of the P stables, pDAI crew, where are you at? Where are you at? Get excited. So over time, it simply moves with the market, kind of like the S&P 500, while stabilizing. Oh man, while stabilizing the P stables. So the pDAI, PUSDT, PUSDC. So just like everything in the S&P 500 moves up together. So over time, it simply moves with the market, kind of like the S&P 500. So once this actually happens with BFF, it's going to move in the general direction with the Atropa ecosystem. But what I'm thinking is, okay, so it's been proven so far with legal. So now we're going into layer 2. So we're going into, okay, now can we continue that idea, but on another layer? And so that's what layer 2 is. So then once we create this layer 2 with this BFF, then just like at the moment, legal is liquidity bonded and moving up with the Atropa ecosystem, and the Atropa ecosystem is generally trending up, just like in the same way that the S&P 500 does, then BFF, once this is established with this network of tokens, is also going to generally move up with Atropa, with legal, with BFF, with the rest of it, just like the S&P 500. And at the same time as it's moving up, it's also stabilizing the P stables. It's also stabilizing the P stables. This is exciting, guys. This is very exciting. Oh, what happened here? Up to you. I wasn't sure. I only recalled I started at 200. So that's a very very cryptic response from Maria. So maybe not. There was no confirmation there. Up to you. I wasn't sure. I only recalled I started at 200. I don't really know what that means. If anybody knows what that might mean, please mention it in the comments. Also, the Verse did a good investigation into pDAI the other day. Things are cooking in the background. I definitely recommend watching that if you're a part of the pDAI crew. Do you work alone, Maria? And was this all initially thought about by you? Bay says, I'm encouraging anyone who wants to work under a single name as a team of writers. And then Kevin says, and this is where my heart starts to really go out to Bay. It must be difficult to understand something that could change the world for the better and not have others get it. Bay says it's computer science. You attack it one day at a time and it grows. That mindset is, I love it. I love it. It's something that also in my meditation, I mean, just live in the moment. In my meditation, one of the things I'm always telling myself is just live today, just live today. I will honestly say that I'm not very good at it. I'm much more thinking into the future and I get burdened by that. But this idea of it's computer science, you attack it one day at a time and it grows. If you really think too much ahead, it's like it's overwhelming. But if you just chip at it one day at a time, so that's, as a mindset thing, this is a really successful and beautiful mind to have. But with this computer science turns into world economies. This could change how the world views computer science forever. Bay says, quantifiably, it's just robot stuff. From my perspective, it only needs good architecting. After we meet goals on BFF, a new challenge will replace it. Oh, I'm sure you have plenty. Not really, but something will come up. So really just living in the present. Kevin again, but when you're doing this, you're discovering things others never get to. Bay says, keeping it holistic. Yeah, every uncrossed bar we can identify and meet is going to be a plus. It's always that. So in other words, in the same way that Richard Hart with Hex and his whole life is really just about the process and actually letting the unfolding of the process be the director. Don't worry too much about the future. You have this idea, this is what I'm thinking it's going to be. And then as you undergo that process, then, this is what it actually is. And you resolve those problems as they come up and new things will emerge. Maybe as you resolve this problem, another problem comes up that you weren't anticipating, or it creates a solution that you weren't anticipating and leads you down a direction that is for the better. So just because the way that Maria operates in this matter actually gives me, again, a lot of faith. So I'm very faith-based, not a religious faith-based, just faith in the universe. Faith to me is like, it's mathematical. It's like scientific. I see it spiritually and scientifically, mathematically. I see it as all those things. It's just a knowingness of the future. And I look at this and I'm like, I have faith because the perception of the mind that's behind this, the genius of the mind that's behind this, the way that they work, their mindset is something that I find very, very attractive. And this is why I'm in love with Bay. And this is why she's definitely a hot Korean. She's 100% a hot Korean. I just know it in my heart. All right. Okay, so what is the largest hurdle at the moment? Is it exposure to Pulsechain? More so entry, I think. So more so entry into the ecosystem and Pulsechain. And actually, OG Web Chef at this point, I might have put it a little bit later, but OG Web Chef was basically saying that entering into Pulsechain is a lot harder than actually entering into Atropa. So if you can enter into a Pulsechain, then you can actually then getting into Atropa is easy. So entry into Atropa is not difficult, but entry into Pulsechain is. Probably because of the chat log. And this is probably true. So this is something that Ted DeFi was pointing out. And would you be ready for more exposure soon? We're still in year one, the proving stage. So again, this is a work in progress. So I have faith that it's going to work. I don't even want to say this word because people think I'm fudding, but just like everything in cryptocurrency, I mean, even being in Pulsechain is a risk. Like we don't know. We truly, I mean, in my heart, I can say I have faith that this is going to work out. It's going to be one of the best blockchains in the world, potentially even the #1 blockchain in the world. And the Atropa ecosystem is going to provide a precedence for what the financial future is going to be, a quantum financial system, a new financial system, a decentralized financial system. But you can never 100% know, unless I have the script here that tells me the future is going to go like this, and this man is going to come along on this day, and then that man is going to come along on that day and do this. I can never truly 100% know, but faith also says that I know. So it's like this contradiction. It's a really interesting contradiction. So I do believe, but we're still in the proving stage. So I like to maintain the positivity, because just like in the Bible, Jesus says that you can move a mountain, like, if you have the faith. And what he's saying is that anything can be achieved by God if you just have that faith. And I believe if we all collectively have that mindset, that this will actually play out. So I don't even try to entertain the negativities. That's why I err to the side of what I call delusional faith, because people will throw it in my face and say, you're just being delusional. But yeah, so what? I'll have faith in the future. And as I continue to have faith in the future, as I continue to place my faith in the universe, everything works out despite people telling me otherwise. It's always worked out. It's always gone according to plan. Actually, you know what? The amount of times in my life, especially since I've started clearing my mind, not so much before, I couldn't really see it. It was happening all the time, but I probably couldn't see it. And it doesn't happen as much. It won't happen. In fact, it happens according to your mind. But there's been so many instances where it's like, there'll be something coming up. For example, there's like something to do with helping others, or something to do with the truth that comes up, and it's like, oh crap, I don't have any money. And let's just say it's this thing that we like, a special thing that we all want to attend, and it costs X amount of money. A lot of people will be in their mind and go, oh, well, I don't have the money, I won't be able to go, and oh, I've got to look after the kids, and I've got to go to my job tomorrow, or I've got to do this, I've got to do that. So they're stuck in their mind. They're stuck in what they think the future is. They're stuck in the condition of what they perceive to be in their mind. How I would approach it is with just delusional faith. My mind would go, oh, I don't have the money, but then I would say, yes, I'm going to go. I'm going to do it. And lo and behold, within 5 minutes, I'd get a call. And hey, I need you to do this job for me. And guess how much the value of that job is? The value of that job is exactly the amount of money that I would need. The amount of times that this has happened since I've cleared my mind, this is why I have like profound faith, more faith than pretty much anybody that I know, more or less anybody that I know. So faith is one of my favorite words. So that's why I continue to have faith in Pulsechain. I continue to have faith in this ecosystem, because every bit of faith that I've ever had has been rewarded by the universe, by God, by Allah, whatever you want to call it. I'm not concerned by the name. So I have faith in this Atropa ecosystem. We're going to make it. We're going to make it. We're all going to make it. Where's that Arnie and Dylan? That, the bloody, with the huge guns. Man, we are going to make it. We're going to make it, friends. We're going to absolutely make it. Okay. So far, it's going really well, says Kevin. 7th Kevin. I feel my position is ready for any level of exposure, but it is a holding position, and I covered all the bases. Every aspect of economics as I perceive it is reflected within the Atropa ecosystem. So again, this is not just an individual token. This is not just a pump and dump. This is not just something where it's like, oh, I'm going to make the founder rich. This is an economic system, a financial system that's being created with this network of tokens, and all the different aspects of economics in the global financial system is covered within this ecosystem in the way that Maria perceives it. So I imagine maybe Maria has run some modeling with the global financial system and how it works, and how when bonds go up or down, like when bonds are up, then everything else is down. And then when bonds start to go down, then this starts to go up, and then gold and whatever, how it interacts. I'm sure she's probably done some modeling on that, and is actually basing this economic system, this financial system, on that. So I'm very excited by that. I'm very excited by that, because that dream of cryptocurrency, of a decentralized financial system, hasn't yet been realized. We haven't yet, we've made steps towards it, but it hasn't yet been realized yet. So this is something that I'm very, very excited about. And I do believe this is what's actually attracted me most of this ecosystem in the first place. How do you expect us to sell? says Kevin. This is a very complicated subject, and I assume you want to keep your anonymity. So how do you get the word out there? Bay says, I don't. It meets all my requirements and qualifies in my perspective as the best investment prospect in crypto. I 100% agree. I 100% agree. When I say Teddy is number one, I'm not saying that because I'm a holder of Teddy. I made that assessment before I bought Teddy. This is the thing. This is the key difference. And I'm not saying my way is definitely the right way, but I made that assessment after the fact. So I wanted to analyze first, what do I think is going to have the best outcome? As I analyzed everything, I see that the differentiation in this ecosystem is the fact that it's in an ecosystem. That's the differentiator. So that's, to me, what makes something like Teddy Bear as the number one meme coin. And I do believe, therefore, that this whole ecosystem is the best investment prospect. That's why I'm so excited about it. And it's really annoying that people are like, oh, I can tell people get frustrated with me that I'm perceived as like a maxi. And it's really annoying because I actually hate being perceived as a maxi. I really hate being like classified as something. Maybe that's like an egoic thing. It's the same as with like meditation. When I talk about meditation, I can see like people's faces go blank and they're like, oh, this guy with his kumbaya. And it's just like, it's got nothing whatsoever to do with that. It's really just about mind mastery. But as soon as you say something like meditation, people judge, and I hate it. I hate being like boxed into this idea, because I'm being boxed into what their idea of what meditation is, which is completely incorrect compared to what the meditation is that I do. So it's really frustrating. And I therefore also have always hated being called like a Richard Hart maxi, and I'm hating now being called an Atropa maxi, and I actually get uncomfortable talking about it a lot, because it's like, yeah, it's a bit frustrating because I don't want to be perceived as a maxi, but I'm talking about it because it's freaking awesome. It's freaking awesome, and it's the most exciting thing that's actually happening on this ecosystem. But it's not getting the attention that it deserves. Mainstream influencers, the best influencers, they just keep fudding it. They're ignoring it, and they're fudding it, and they're mocking it. They're mocking things like pDAI, and I think that that's a big mistake. And I really hope that they come around and start to see what this is all about. And I hope that doesn't sound like critical of them or anything like that. I love all those guys. Like, I think it's like anything, you should focus on what you're doing. And this is what I'm focusing on. But I wish people would just have an open mind. That's all I wish. If you just have an open mind and you can actually see the beauty of it, that's what my hope is. That's what I always try to do. Just have an open mind and see what's there and see the beauty of it, because there's definitely something beautiful here as the best investment prospect in crypto. And I do fundamentally believe that right now. I really, really do. And I bet accordingly. I definitely say so, says Kevin. I definitely would too, Kev. Kevin's heaven. So my presumption, Bay says, my presumption is people will buy. People don't know how to buy, and there's a campaign to keep them from knowing how to buy. Now, well, she goes on. Well, Kevin goes on, so I wanted clarity on this as well. So my presumption is people will buy because results, green candles, they speak. If this breaks, if Atropa breaks its all-time high, people are going to get into it because the euphoria is going to come. That's what attracted me to it. Seeing it go high, it's like, wow, there's this thing going on. I studied, I learned, then I started buying it on the way down as it was dipping down. And I'm seeing that it's starting to go towards that all-time high. And I'm believing, my thesis is that it's going to break all-time high. I'm believing that as an ecosystem, it's going to do exactly the same as what the Tangang's HOA has done. I'm believing that it's going to do that as an ecosystem. So it's a much more complex thing than just an individual token. That's something to be very, very excited about. Honestly, guys, that is something to be so excited about, but people are not. It's blowing my mind. But they will be if they get the results, because again, the results speak louder than anything. I can sit here and I can do like 1 billion videos. No one's going to care. Same as Somi. How many videos did he need to do? But until the results come, until the green candles come, and then it's like, oh, we love you, Somi, you're the best. I mean, he was only saying the same thing again and again and again and again, but then the results come and then he's right. And then he gets the credit. And the results will do the talking. So my presumption is people will buy if the results continue. People don't know how to buy, and there's a campaign to keep them from knowing how to buy. So Kevin says the campaign is that against Richard Hart, and Bay says no, it's against crypto. So now we get that clarity. Many projects have been malevolent. So this has been a big issue. But this is something where, yeah, again, it's a shame that it's actually happening within this ecosystem. And this is why I don't want to get involved with it. And again, I can see that the different communities are very protective of their own communities, and they might see things within this community or this ecosystem that they see as malevolent, but I don't see that. I haven't seen it. So I'm not entirely sure what they're talking about, but I can see why they would have that perception, because that's how the human mind is. So if you don't actually do the research and study it for yourself, you're only going to judge it on your preconceived ideas. So this brain, this mind is just like a robot. So whatever you programmed into there, so if I read a book on physics, then just like in the Matrix, once he downloads it into his brain, it's exactly like that. Do you know why The Matrix is such a profound movie? Because it speaks of the truth. That's how the mind actually works. They download it into their brain. That's how it works, man. If you don't read a book on Aristotle's Republic, you're not going to know anything about Aristotle's Republic. Whatever you watch, whatever you read, whatever you hear, that's what goes into your mind. That's what comes out of it. It's the same thing. So in this manner, people have seen a lot of malevolence in cryptocurrency. And then they see this new thing, they don't know anything about it. And because humans, scientifically speaking, err on the side of negativity, then they're naturally going to have negativity towards this. They're just going to assume it's just another malevolent thing, because there's so many malevolent things throughout crypto. There's so many rug pulls. Oh, they're just extracting liquidity out of us. That's not the case. It's not the case. I'm sorry to say, but I believe you guys are wrong, and time will prove that. If you have that mindset, then I encourage you to learn. I encourage you to be open-minded, drop those preconceived ideas, those preconceived beliefs, and just read and understand, learn. Read the chat log. If you don't want to read the chat log, I'll keep bringing the chat log to you with these slices of the chat log that I believe are really important to convey to the community. Okay, so how can we prove that yours won't? Obviously, your track record is clean. And this is where it was EAD11 says Pulsechain itself is harder to enter than Atropa, so not Atropa. And then Bay says it's not possible, so we can't prove. The whole network would actually have to crash. So how can you prove that yours won't be malevolent? Obviously, your track record is clean. It's not possible. The whole network would have to crash. There is zero code technology. The mintable contracts have been made public knowledge, and I don't have any robots. So in other words, it's not possible for this to be malevolent. The whole network would have to crash for this to be proved as a malevolent thing. There is zero code technology. The mintable contracts have been made public knowledge. So all the contracts which are mintable, it's public, it's there. You can see it for yourself. And she doesn't have any robots, so she can't do like rug pulls. There's no chances of rug pulls here. So I would encourage people to, again, really open up to what's actually happening here. If you have seen something in the past where it was something that you considered to be malevolent, I would encourage you to dig a little bit deeper. And again, drop your ideas. I had somebody say to me that liquidity was taken out of it and then taken off chain. But we don't actually know what happened with that money off chain. Could have got a 10x here, taken it off chain, got a 10x there, and then brought it back into the chain and brought it back into the ecosystem. Isn't that a lot better than just keeping it there as this stagnant, while everything's going down, it's just stagnant and it's going down with the ecosystem? Wouldn't it be better to take that profit, go and extract liquidity from somewhere else and bring it into the chain? That's pretty damn good. That is something that I would consider a benevolent thing for the ecosystem. So again, we really have to expand what we're seeing and drop our preconceptions, in my opinion. Okay, so Kevin, and you haven't sold down on any tokens besides Penrose, so it's very cool to watch that, by the way. I think Penrose was a success. I'm happy to see it has risen in price. So if someone makes a lot on BFF, says Kevin, would you prefer them to stay in the Atropa ecosystem, or are you indifferent? Some may change their lives with what you're doing. Bay says, it's not supposed to matter. I feel it's important to reward the earliest investors. And this is also something that I think is very important as well. The earliest Bitcoin investors are the ones who are the loudest in supporting the network's growth. I've seen that as clear as day with Hex, with the biggest and the earliest investors are the loudest ones now to continue to make it grow, to actually go out into the world and expand the network. Same as Pulsechain. Richard Hart talks about new whales. Each new token, if they are benevolent for the ecosystem, and they generally will be, if their benefit is in supporting the network and helping it grow because they're whales, then naturally they're going to want to support it. So I feel it's important to reward the earliest investors, and they just get naturally rewarded by virtue of being early. So this is why I'm like, guys, come and have a look. But at the same time, it's like, well, if they don't come, it's just their loss. Then there's more slice of the pie for the rest of us. But the beauty of this is, as we see with layer 1, layer 2, the S&P 500 moving up, all it means is these people that come in later, they can still make money, but then they can still create value and tokens, which is going to move up with this Atropa ecosystem, but they're just going to be further behind. But they're not, it's not like an exponential loss. It's not like, it's different from something like Bitcoin, where I'm going to try and buy one Bitcoin for $70,000, and there's guys who bought 70,000 for like $2. It's unequal. It's not a I wouldn't say it's not a fair system. That's not the right word, but because it's within an individual token, it's skewed towards the top holders because it's in that individual token. If there's continuously new layers that are being added to this Atropa ecosystem, then the people in the new layers will benefit in the same way that we benefit, except they're going to just be further behind. So in the same way in the S&P 500, I could put money into the S&P 500 today, but I'll never catch up to the people who put money into the S&P 500 20 years ago. They're always going to be ahead, but the people now will still benefit just as much. They'll still benefit in proportion to however much they've put in. And so that's something that I see here. But yes, the importance of the early investors is very important, because they're the ones that are promoting it on Twitter. They're the ones that are interested in watching it grow. They're the ones that are interested in building it out. And again, being in ground zero for Pulsechain and watching how it develops is like the confirmation for that. And again, I don't actually really know any whales in Pulsechain, or I might, but I might not know that they're whales. But I do know whales in Bitmobic, for example, and these whales are genuinely interested in protecting the ecosystem. They don't want to sell. They just want the ecosystem to grow. Those are the kinds of people that you want. That's the kind of activity that you want on the network. So when you have people who want to do that, that's very good for the network. I used to think it was bad having whales, but I was wrong. You actually need them. They're the nucleus. That's the power. That's the generator for the ecosystem to continue to expand and grow. It all flourishes and comes out from them. It's a force that's actually a requirement. Okay. And that's why it's like at the moment, all this like fights and arguments with the Hex OGs and the criticisms against them, it's like, man, just lay off each other. Like, again, just focus on building what you want to build, be positive. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody's got to look after their family and make money wherever they've got to make money, but everybody's just trying their best. So let's just lay off each other and let's just chill out. Actually, that was the end of it. So I continued to read the chat log, and the conversation started to deviate, and it started to change from that sort of thread of conversation. So that was everything about the BFF. So again, as a matter of fact, what I might just very quickly do is I'm going to bring up the summary of what that conversation was and just conclude with that summary, because I think it's very important, again, to wrap our head around what's actually going on here, because there's more happening here than I think that we actually realize. And I think we should be grateful for this, what's actually happening, that somehow this genius has been attracted to this ecosystem and is building out this Atropa ecosystem on our chain. I am very proud of that. I would be very jealous if this was happening on Solana, but what's happening on Solana is just VCs going there and using us for exit liquidity. But here we actually have this genius whale, this genius hot Korean babe computer scientist, economics expert that's created this ecosystem, this Atropa ecosystem, and is now going into the next layer, which is happening with BFF. So this whole conversation was about what's happening with BFF. So I'm going to, in the future, look at what happened with legal and then tie the two together and see where we can find some commonalities and actually try to understand what's happening here more and more. The Atropa ecosystem is a financial ecosystem. It is not about pumpermentals for an individual token. People should humble themselves and try to learn from a genius rather than be critical. And then, of course, OG Web Chef is also cooking in the background and sharing his BFF programmable buy bot. So, if you have this kind of programmable buy bot, this automatic buy pressure, just like the Pulsechain buy and burn feature, if these kinds of ideas can be laid into the ecosystem, it's very good for the ecosystem. It's very, very good for the ecosystem. So again, there's really a lot to be excited about. I think this was an extremely long episode. It was a lot longer than what I was wanting it to be because I'm extremely tired, but just on a mindset thing, a very interesting thing that I would like to express. One thing about my meditation, I used to be very, very lazy. And to some degrees, I still do have bouts of laziness now because it's such deep habits because I was so lazy for so long. And part of the meditation that I do is sitting and meditating and clearing your mind. So reflecting on the life that I've lived. So for example, my laziness, reflecting on all the times that I was lazy in my life, that I didn't want to do that work, that I rejected it, that I was angry when my parents told me to clean this or do that. I don't like doing the dishes, or I hate doing this, and clearing those times from my mind. That's part of meditation. The other part is actually moving your body. That's what I love about this, because I don't really like sitting and meditating. It's I'd rather be doing something. We all would rather be doing something, but I see it as a requirement. I also don't really like going to the gym, but I still go every day because I want to get huge. I'm already pretty huge, but I want to be healthy, right? Same thing for my mind. So with this meditation, the moving meditation is what I love. We call it action meditation. Part of that action meditation is to do things that you don't like. So the teacher says to really not force yourself, or in a way, force yourself. So do the things that you don't want to do and keep discarding the minds that come up. And as you do that, as you do the things that you don't want to do, you're breaking down those habits in your body in action. So instead of like, oh, I don't want to do this, I don't like cooking, or I don't like cleaning, and just staying stuck in that world, like for me, it's such a lazy perspective. I don't like cleaning, but you know what? I love cleaning now. I used to hate it, but I love it now. I find it so invigorating. I get a lot of energy from it. I'm moving my body. I'm staying healthy. The people who live the longest are the ones that are continuously moving their body, just for the record, in the blue zone. So the point of this is doing the things that you don't want to do is very, very good for your body and your mind. It increases your longevity. And this was something that my meditation teacher has been saying for many years. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And as I've actually done it, I've noticed the profound changes in my own mind and in my own bodily habits. But then the science behind it now as well. Andrew Huberman was talking about this the other day, where he was saying there's this part of your brain, I don't know what it is, amygdala, something or other, that basically if you do something, he was having a conversation with David Goggins, if you do something that you hate, then it's really, really good for your brain. It's creating all these different pathways. It's like extremely healthy for your brain, and it increases the health of your brain and your longevity. And so I just wanted to finish up on a mindset thing, because again, for myself, I'm destroyed today. Like, you might not see it, but I'm so wrecked just from staying up late, working long hours. I'm really tired, and I only wanted this to be a short episode, but I also wanted to honor this process and honor the audience and give you guys the quality. And when I'd seen this thread of conversation, I felt I need to actually deliver this, especially with where we are with BFF at the moment. We're kind of lingering around the $2,000 to $3,000 mark. So there's still plenty of opportunities there. There's still plenty of opportunities for you to become part of this new layer. BFF is going to be an essential part of layer 2. And we're saying 8,000 is the bottom. So at the moment, it's like 2.5 to 3,000. So it's like a 2 to 3x to 8,000. Okay, that's not huge, but that's the bottom. That's the bottom. And just like with legal, which is connected with all these different tokens, your BFF, you'll be able to leverage your BFF to get other kinds of tokens as well. So keep that in mind. And again, it's the bottom. The upside potential could be huge as other tokens start to connect to this and start to pump that price up in the way that we were talking about that's happened with legal. in the way that the whole Atropa ecosystem is set up. So I think that that's definitely something to keep in mind. So really wanted to end on that the mindset and this idea of like pushing yourself to do things that you don't want to do because it's really good for your brain. And yeah, come out of your mind and enter into the Atropa ecosystem. Thank you very much, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that episode, and I hope you got some value out of it.